Welcome into the Rant, everybody. They've gone to halftime. Pittsburgh leading Los Angeles. I almost said San Diego. I still want to say San Diego.
Well, it's
23-7.
They never should have left San Diego.
No, they shouldn't. It's a joke what they're doing.
I'm with you.
All right. Bill Haston, Tulsa World, Cade McFarland, and the stuff we have to talk about just keeps getting better and better and better. As you've heard by now, the Oklahoma Sooners are in the college football playoff for the third time in 4 years, for the second straight year. They come in the back door, get that 4 seed, beating out Georgia and Ohio State. I was a little surprised that it went Georgia 5, Ohio State 6, especially since in talking about why they took OU over Georgia, they said conference championships matter a lot to us, but then you put Georgia over anyway. Okay, let's start there, Bill.
So Georgia, no, we were talking about all the momentum that Georgia seemed to be getting, well, certainly with all, not
Maybe
all
the
of
most
them,
important voice at ESPN, college football-wise, Kirk Herbstreit, went
banging the drum
all
hard
in on Georgia last night. Okay, so we'll start there. You think OU should have gotten in? I think OU should have gotten in. I thought it was really close. I thought it was really close with Ohio State. I thought you put those resumes up, it's stinking close. Ohio State's got the best win, maybe even top 2 wins, depending upon what you think of Texas and West Virginia. But I think OU's resume overall was simply better, and they avenged their only loss. They were the more consistent team, even though that defense was awful. Yeah, OU should be in, and Georgia lost by 20 to LSU, so as great as they looked yesterday,
right.
I just don't see any way that Georgia should be in.
Well, as it pertains to Ohio State, no matter how you turn, no matter how I turn the Buckeyes, I never lose sight of a 29-point loss at Purdue, at a 6-6 Purdue. So that, regardless of what happened in the Michigan game, that disqualified Ohio State in my mind. And then, but you know, Bob Bowlesby the Big 12 commissioner, met with a handful of writers yesterday in the press box right before kickoff. And he said, and I'm paraphrasing, but he said the last thing that the committee members will be influenced because of human nature by the last thing they see, Kate.
Right.
And so here's the last thing they saw was the fourth quarter of the Texas OU rematch, during which OU's defense made winning clutch plays.
Did. Union grad Trey Brown,
biggest
with
play of
the
the game.
Safety, no doubt, biggest play of the game, and then set the stage for the touchdown pass, the one-hander to Mark Calcaterra, and then I guess you're also talking about the Trey Norwood interception to end things when Texas could have scored, and against OU most of the year they gave up scores on drives exactly like that, and then we could have had an onside kick, but the defense slammed the door shut. So. Yeah, give them credit for making plays the last 2 weeks. In their 2 biggest games, their 2 biggest wins, the OU defense stepped up and made some plays.
Well, they scored the winning points essentially at West Virginia.
That's right.
And then, but here's what the college football playoff decision makers saw in the fourth quarter yesterday. They saw that on Texas's last 18, and Texas's 18 plays in the fourth quarter,
okay.
On 11 of those plays, they gained no more than 2 yards.
Yeah,
and
that's
on
winning defense,
3 possessions for Texas in the fourth quarter of a championship game, they punted, they got sacked for a safety, and they got picked by Trey Norwood to end the game.
Sure.
Those were their 3. And so OU's defense, the big picture of the season, obviously way below playoff caliber. But, these last 2 weeks, they were a reason why they won the game at West Virginia, and they absolutely, deservedly can claim some ownership on that championship game yesterday. Yep. They were a big factor.
All right, we all know what's next. The Alabama Crimson Tide, #1, have beaten everybody in the country by 20 until yesterday, and yesterday's win, every bit as impressive for me as anything they had done before, because they were down 28-14 against a Georgia team that Kirk Herbstreit now tells me is the 3rd best in the country, and they found a way to score the final 21 points, most of it with their now backup quarterback, a guy who, by the way, has won a national championship for them. Look, they do not have the Alabama defenses of the last 3 or 4 years for the most part.
Right.
OU's going to find some success against these guys without a doubt offensively, but Tua changes things for those guys. And, OU got a little more pressure yesterday, and as you mentioned in the fourth quarter, they certainly made some winning plays defensively. But there were a lot of Texas wide receivers running wide open or just mossing, OU DBs on 3rd and long plays.
Right.
I mean, convince me, or maybe you don't have to. I mean, is there any way OU gets stops in this ball game against this offense?
I think there's more of a chance that OU gets a couple of takeaways than true 3 and outs.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I can see them. I mean, it's going to have to be a combination of a little bit of the OU defense and a little bit of Alabama dysfunction, which is rare, except we don't know what Tua's ankle is going to look like.
That's right.
3 weeks.
On the shelf for a couple
weeks.
weeks.
We don't know what Marquise Brown's ankle is going to look like in 3 weeks.
That's big. I mean, to me, if Marquise Brown's not healthy and not able to take the top off that Alabama defense, man, I don't like OU's chances. As brilliant as Kyler Murray is, I think eventually Alabama would suffocate them. They'd have some success, but I don't think it'd be sustained. They're a 14-point underdog.
Yeah.
If you had to go one way or another on the line, do you think OU can keep it within 14?
Yeah.
Do you really?
No, I do. No, it's been a couple of months since I caught myself underestimating Kyler Murray, and I'm not going to do that anymore.
Yeah.
And he even against the Alabama Crimson Tide, he'll be the best player in the game. So I see now. Marquise Brown's health status is, you can't overstate the importance of that, because he adds a dimension. He's as important to the OU passing game in regard to what he does on deep throws, just about as important as Kyler Murray's contribution to the run game.
Sure.
It's just a dimension that other teams don't have.
Yeah.
And so Kyler Murray's, and that's why Kyler Murray's going to win the Heisman, too, because if you look, oh no,
you're calling your shot there.
No, I think he will though.
Okay.
If you look at all the statistical categories comparing,
we've got that.
Tua,
Roll that video. Mike Houken, the OU media relations folks, sent this out last night, and I mean, you look at the numbers, and just about all of them are.
All of them,
it's better for Kyler than it is Tua. Not by a lot.
All the passing game measurables favor Murray, and then you get down to rushing yards a game, and it's 70 to 15 in favor of Kyler. I mean, he's the best player in the country. He's an efficient guy. You talked about it before we started, just his ability to, on the move or in the pocket, whatever, to snap throws on the money. And I
call him Aaron Rodgers-like with some of the stuff, how effortless he can make things look, big-time throws.
Right. I mean, the throw to Calcaterra in the corner.
Yeah.
The Calcaterra one-handed pull-in catch. I mean, you couldn't have just dropped it into a better position.
I mean,
that's a perfect pass. So,
can you believe back in August, Lincoln Riley had us thinking that there was a quarterback battle between? Well, I mean, nothing against Austin Kendall, who I have no doubt will take the reins next year and lead this team to 40 points per game plus. But I mean, this guy is the best player in the country.
Think about this, too.
He's got me thinking he needs to quit the baseball thing and be a first-round pick in the NFL, because I don't see how he wouldn't be a wild success.
No, I don't know what he's thinking the last 60 days in regard to football, but it's got to be his mindset in regard to, he seemed, I'm sure, in the summer and even into the season a little bit, committed to baseball, obviously. And then now here we are creeping up on, the brink of the playoff, and I'm with you. I mean, he and his dad and his agent, if he has an agent, have got to be making inquiries about what if, hypotheticals. What if? What do you think? Because the press boxes are full of pro scouts every week, and they're not just watching. I mean, they're watching Kyler Murray.
No doubt.
If he wasn't on the radar the first month, he's right in the middle of it now.
Oh, he is.
He's the most prominent guy in that radar now.
I want to get into the Heisman discussion a little bit more, but first, before that, I want to get your opinion on this. The two best defenses. I'm big on some of the advanced metrics, S&P or FEI, things like that are supposed to take into account who you faced, not just as a team, but their specific offense and defense, the points they put up, the yards per game they put up, and what you give up, yards per drive, all that sort of thing. Only two, what I would say no elite defenses has OU faced all year long. Kyler Murray and that OU offense, they have not faced, in my opinion, an elite defense all year long. They faced two good ones. TCU and Iowa State are both ranked kind of 25 or 30, right around there. So that's good. Those are good defenses. Now,
however, but TCU is chewed up by that point.
And do you see a whole bunch of NFL talent on either one of those defenses? I say no. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't look out there and see defensive talent like I saw in that SEC championship game yesterday. They don't look and move like that. The Texas defense was about 50th. So we'll say 3 decent defenses, 2 good. They haven't seen what they're going to see in Alabama. We know that Alabama's not as good defensively as they were in 2011 or 2012, some of those years.
Right.
But they're still really good. And you saw them getting after Georgia when that game was still in question late and it mattered the most. They were collapsing the pocket every single time.
Right.
Do we know? I mean, we love Kyler. I just compared him to Aaron Rodgers. We both think he maybe ought to give the NFL a look. We're sold on this kid. We're sold on the OU offense. We love Lincoln Riley and the way he schemes things up. But are we convinced that they're going to go out there and have just a whole bunch of success against Alabama? And is that Rose Bowl 1 year ago the only reason why? I mean, because 3 years ago against Clemson, they scored 17. I saw Sam Bradford score 60 on everybody for 2 months, and then Florida held him to 14. Are we putting too much stock in that Rose Bowl game 1 year ago?
Well, you have to keep in mind that if you go back the last several years, that Nick Saban has had more guys drafted than the Big 12 has had drafted.
Well, sure. Probably by a big margin.
Well,
now that I think
literal.
through that, yeah, absolutely.
I think he said 77 guys drafted.
Are you defense?
No,
Nick Saban's had more guys drafted than the entire Big 12 conference, offense and defense?
No, I think overall.
Holy smokes.
I'm talking about just the last 4 or 5 years, but his entire time at Bama, I think he's had 26 first-round picks.
Yeah, I mean, they are doing something unlike anybody else. I mean, Clemson's got a great squad this year, but I mean, if you're talking big picture, there's Alabama, and then you can draw 3 lines.
Well, let's extend your hypothetical or your question. Let's extend it to Lincoln. Do I think Lincoln Riley can scheme it up and get some, and baffle Alabama a little bit? And yeah, I do. Yeah. But I do think, though, going back to Marquise Brown, it's so critically important to have Marquise Brown at or near 100%.
Yeah.
Man, you'd love to see Rodney Anderson.
No kidding. Ran
magically
for 200 against
activated
Georgia last year.
Yeah, magically activated for this one. But even with him out, I mean, I think the combination of Kennedy Brooks, Sermon, Murray on occasion, and then, like I said, I told you before the segment, Murray completed passes to 10 guys.
Yeah,
in the championship
that surprised me a little
yesterday.
bit. That's impressive.
10 different targets.
Yeah.
And so there are options. And, on a lot of those pass plays, Miles Tees, Rambo, whomever, if I'm surprised to see that guy targeted on that route, maybe Alabama will be too. So maybe Lincoln, the combination of Lincoln and Murray and those weapons, sure, maybe they can make it interesting, sure. But there's a reason it's a 14-point line.
Yeah, and we point to that Rose Bowl as a reason to believe in OU's offense. There were 2 halves played in that game, and OU's offense only scored 1 touchdown in the second half. But a lot of that had to do with the fact that Georgia was able to get to Baker Mayfield, really starting kind of in the second quarter, and they beat him up pretty good. We haven't seen anybody get to Kyler Murray, and while I think Alabama probably will, I know that Kyler Murray's escapability is at a different level than Baker Mayfield's. Maybe he bedevils them for an entire afternoon. I mean, that might just happen.
You know what, though? Maybe somewhere in Alabama there's an Alabama rant right now, and they're saying, that Oklahoma offensive line, man, has Alabama faced any? Because, we had to do the AP All Big 12 team today, or today, tomorrow. And, every one of those 5 guys for OU is on that all-conference team, all of them.
Yeah, a lot of times we say Kyler Murray, and what we really should be saying is Kyler Murray and that OU offensive line. Because, I mean, that's the combination. And then you put in Hollywood Brown as well, and CeeDee Lamb too, and the running backs. But the whole thing's good,
you know what,
but that OU offensive line is just so incredibly valuable.
CeeDee Lamb, if there weren't a Marquise Brown to steal so much of the attention, CeeDee Lamb is really good. And you know what? OU really, offensively yesterday, went to a better level once he got involved.
Right.
He didn't have a catch for a long time. And then once he hit I think it was a 46-yard throw down the Texas sideline. And from that point, CeeDee Lamb now he fumbled the football when he inexplicably kind of just decided to stop running on the 54-yard throw.
He got a little lackadaisical on that jaunt for 55 yards before. Yeah, I mean, and he had several chances to go down and make that just a spectacular play that put them on their way to sealing the thing.
Right,
but
right.
yeah, a rare mistake from CeeDee Lamb.
I mean, but you know, that's the beauty of OU Alabama is it's such a contrast of approaches and styles and personnel, and so I mean, if we all kind of feel like since opening day that we're destined to see Clemson, Alabama in the championship game again.
Yeah.
So let's see something cool in the semis. Let's see
Exactly.
Lincoln Riley against Nick Saban.
That's good stuff. You think Kyler will win the Heisman?
After this weekend, I do.
Yeah.
I do. And the graphic Mike Houck at OU emailed out to not just state media, but
right.
National.
Everybody.
And you got to admit too, and you know what helps Kyler a little bit, I think, is that Jalen Hurts came off the bench and won the SEC championship.
Yeah, I agree. For people who didn't vote until after yesterday's games were
played.
played.
And whoever voted earlier than that is a fool and should be stripped of their rights to vote.
Now we're ranting. 10 of 25, 2 picks, and the other guy comes off the bench to win the biggest, most important, only tight game of the year. Yeah.
Okay, but what I would argue is that, okay, what would Alabama be right now if Jalen Hurts had been the guy all season? Well, they'd probably be 13-0.
Yeah.
Just like the Warriors
worst.
would have won a bunch of games at another championship without Durant.
That's right.
I don't even know where that came from. But
it's
always a reference point.
It's never far from the surface.
That's right. It's always a handy reference point. But where would Oklahoma be without Kyler Murray?
8-4.
8-4. You're exactly right. They would have lost at Lubbock. They would have lost at Morgantown.
No.
They probably would have lost Bedlam.
I've gone from thinking he should win the Heisman to, yeah, I kind of think if I had to tell you right now which way is this going to go on Saturday, I kind of think Kyler's going to win the Heisman. All right, one final thing. You covered him for a lot of years.
Bill Snyder?
Bill Snyder.
Yeah.
Retires today for the second time, 27 seasons at Kansas State. I mean, what can you say that hasn't already been said about Bill Snyder? I mean, people who know what they're talking about will tell you that nobody's done a better coaching job anywhere. If you consider everything, all the obstacles, nobody's done it better.
I love this old footage.
Yeah, that's some good stuff, right?
Well, here's what I can say.
Look at that.
10 years, Caden, after he took that job, at the worst program in the country, 10 years later, he had the best team in the country. 98, he had the best team. Now, they didn't win it.
Right.
They got shocked in the Big 12 championship game, and they had to go to the Alamo Bowl, which is crazy. To be on the brink of the BCS championship game, to lose in overtime to A&M in the Big 12 championship game, and then you end up in the Alamo Bowl. But and think of the staff members he had: Mark Mangino, Mike Stoops, Brenton Venables. That was a superstar staff.
Oh, no doubt.
But Kansas State, you could argue, was the best team in college football in '98, and that close.
Yeah.
And you know, now in hindsight, you wish he'd won it.
Sure.
It'd have been awesome.
Sure.
It would just, I mean, his legacy is undeniably sensational.
Yeah. And look, when you look at the entire body of work, the period of time you're talking about, I mean, that was the very best of it. But to come back again after Ron Prince struggled for, was it 2 seasons or 3 with Prince? 3 seasons where, I don't know if they made a bowl or if they did, they were around 500 for 3 seasons.
But they had,
2012, I think we sometimes forget, if they just beat Baylor in the season finale, they're playing for a national championship. They beat a Landry Jones OU team that was, top 10 in the country in Norman.
Right.
And they were 1 win away from playing for a national championship.
Well, I mean, even his
and that was him at what age? I mean, roughly,
He came back at 69.
Yeah. So he was in his 70s at that point.
I mean, even his second run at K-State, they averaged like 8.5 wins. So it's going to be fascinating to see what it looks like at K-State with the next guy.
Yeah. He has set it up to where, I mean, some of the names you hear, really, really good, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the facilities are great. The fan base is really good. And I do believe they're going to make a really nice hire. Seth Luttrell is a name you hear some, but I mean, there are plenty of others.
Yeah, there are others, but that's the name I hear most.
And I mean, that's a guy who I think would have success. It's hard to win in the Big 12. I mean, they're just, you got to play everybody, and there aren't, other than the one team across the state at Kansas State, there are no easy outs.
There are hundreds and hundreds of coaches and former athletes who've received handwritten notes from Bill Snyder over the last 30 years. And I've seen some of them because people tweet them, images of them or something. And I just think, what an awesome touch.
Yeah.
And you know, when he gets his heart ripped out in a tough loss, he'll write a congratulations note to the opposing quarterback or coach or something.
Sure.
Just total class. Barry Switzer, long ago, said, best coaching job of all time.
Right.
The best coaching performance of all time. It's hard to argue with it.
All right. Can I get you for 3 more minutes?
Yeah.
I'm going to apologize to Jake back there. Just something I should have gotten to earlier that I forgot about.
Can I have
this
a
is
drink
free, by the way.
Can I have a drink of pop?
Absolutely, you can. This is relaxed. This is au naturel right here. This is not regular television. Yeah. Something I meant to get to earlier.
Yeah.
Because of Kirk Herbstreit and ESPN and the Marathon show today, and then Twitter. Almost all of us are on Twitter, and so that conversation just goes back and forth and back and forth, and it gets contentious. Mm-hmm. Good for college football or not good for college football? All the discussion that now goes around it, and it's always been a regional sport, but it feels like people just dig in, and there are people in Big 12 country who just loathe the Big 10. You know, fine teams up there. Mm-hmm. You know, Ohio State doesn't make the playoff, but they went 12-1. I mean, they're not a dog, but everybody's just got to run down as much as humanly possible.
Right.
The team that happens to be perhaps encroaching on your team's position. Is this stuff good? Is the 14 playoff and all the discussion that goes around it, is this helping college football?
It helps. It helps college football. It's bad for society.
There you go. That's probably the right answer.
No, yeah. But it's great for college football. I mean, in season, especially as in the final third of the season when there's speculation and things are starting to take shape. During the week, is it just because of who we follow online or on Twitter, or is it because my perception is right that you just seem to hear and read a lot more about college football during the week than you do about the NFL? I do.
Yeah. No, I mean, maybe that's because we're in Oklahoma. You know what I mean? Like, there is a lot of talk about the NFL, no doubt. But the debates are interesting in college football simply because you don't always settle it all on the field. It didn't get settled on the field necessarily with regard to OU, Georgia, and Ohio State. I mean, when you got 130 teams and 12 games, the answers will never be perfect. They simply can't. You're just doing the best you can, looking at a whole bunch of things. But the other side's always going to have 2 or 3 things they can point to as most important.
I bet you when time expired yesterday, that Bowlesby staff dumped a Gatorade on him because they had the largest crowd ever to see a conference championship game. You had OU Texas rematch.
Absolutely.
And your champion won the game, and at that time presumably that was the gateway to the playoff. Mm-hmm. And your Heisman Trophy quarterback had an 8 out of 10, 130-yard big touchdown fourth quarter. You know what I mean? You couldn't. And your runner-up team actually played well and didn't embarrass itself.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And that's something we should have hit on as well. The fact that I didn't expect this. Was it 80-20 Burnt Orange fans to Sooner fans yesterday? 70-30.
No, I mean the Tulsa World consensus was it was closer to 60-40.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Maybe from up top, the vantage point is a little bit different than where I was on the field all day long. But, man, that was a pro-Texas crowd. It was certainly a pro-Texas crowd. But OU Texas in the Big 12 championship game, yes, please. I mean, let's get in the habit of doing that. I mean, that was good stuff, without a doubt.
I know you're trying to sign us out, so I'll ask you this, and we'll get out of here.
Okay.
You are the commissioner of the Big 12. Mm-hmm. You call the shots.
I'd be so
bad. And you have one decision to make, and then you're out. Mm-hmm. OU Texas on an annual basis. AT&T or the Cotton Bowl?
Cotton Bowl.
The regular, or you keep it at the Cotton Bowl? Mm-hmm. Boy, isn't AT&T nice though?
Oh yeah, and I think it's perfect for this. This is the perfect setup. Mm-hmm. Getting this, if not every year, then a lot of years, because it is a nice change of pace, and AT&T is nice. And this time of year we get the dome because it was warm yesterday, but it could have been 45. And that would have been really nice under those circumstances.
Could have been like
but you can't take this thing out of the Cotton Bowl and the split at the 50-yard line and everything, the State Fair, everything that goes with it. No, never, please don't. I mean, I would never say never. I mean, Jerry's got a lot of money, but to me, this is perfect. Play that thing every year in the Cotton Bowl, and then, a lot of people are hoping and praying for this.
Somebody on Twitter asked the question or expressed surprise that there wasn't a giant inflatable Jerry Jones like Big Tex to greet everybody at the stadium yesterday.
Oh, all right. Here's something my brother sent me, going back to that topic we were on just a minute ago. Twitter users should be forced to befriend a person of each team they hate. Go do that, people. That's how we're going to sign off the Rant. Go befriend somebody on Twitter from a team you hate. And that's how we can have fun with the college football debate, but also help things with regard to society, like Bill was talking about.
I've been mindful of my posture this whole segment because of Carson Cunningham's advice. Or not,
did he tell you to sit up straight
no,
on this show?
No, he sent me a picture, a screenshot of us, and I was leaning, and so I've been mindful of my posture. And then I blew it with the soda break during the
Oh, no.
So,
the soda break's fantastic. Carson, thanks for watching. Thanks for taking screenshots.
He watches every week.
God, I love Carson.
So thank you, Carson.
You know, Carson took some shots at Notre Dame on Twitter, and I let it go because I like him, and because, like, I love Notre Dame. I appreciate this team. They went 12-0. I've had a great time watching them. If I'm honest, I understand why they would be the underdog against not only Alabama and Clemson, but I think on ESPN today they said OU, Ohio State, and Georgia. Like, I get it. I get it. Notre Dame's got to go do it on the field. And I understand. Now, I would say that because I watch them so closely, they probably have more talent than people in this part of the world know. Like, they've got more NFL talent, certainly on defense. Like, they'll have more guys drafted in the NFL from that defense than the top 3 or 4 teams in the Big 12, for sure.
Here's my problem. Here's my problem
with
Notre Dame, Caden, is that the one game I got to see more than any this year was the Pittsburgh game.
That was the wrong game to watch.
I know.
So
you know what I mean?
They're not perfect. They're not perfect. They're far from perfect.
But all right. If you're a television executive and you get to like open the playoff committee door and say, can I just say one thing? I want the 2 best teams. I want Notre Dame, and I want the best player.
Yeah.
And that's what they got.
And to address
they got Kyler Murray, Notre Dame, and the 2 favorites.
To address both Carson and Brian Keating at Cocoa, great guys. Notre Dame, I guess it was actually Sam Mays down in Oklahoma City who said, like, we don't know enough about Notre Dame because they didn't play a conference championship game, the 13th data point. And I would say there's almost nobody in college football we know more about than Notre Dame because they play teams from all different regions. So they get diverse styles of play every single year. They've been playing Pac-12 teams that were wide open and pass happy for years, and then Midwest teams that were more ground and pound, and they get the triple option from Navy. I mean, look, yeah, Florida State and USC were down this year, but still Northwestern and Pittsburgh played in conference championship games yesterday.
Yes, it did.
Syracuse had 9 wins and finished in the top 20. Like, Notre Dame plays no FCS teams. And so I get people who are just so in love with winning a conference championship as, you know, a prerequisite for getting into the playoff. I can understand why you would look at Notre Dame the way you do, but you should give them respect for the schedule they play because it is, as an independent, they could go a lot of directions. They could have softened this thing years ago, and they really don't.
You know, and the presence of Notre Dame alone will add 2 or 3 million viewers to that first semifinal. You watch.
It's they're going to bring a whole lot of people to Arlington. I'll be really interested to see what the split is there. I would imagine a few more Notre Dame fans in Clemson, but obviously, you know, Clemson at this point, those people probably saved their money and expect this. So, you know,
that's the only disappointment of the day for me is that the Alabama-Oklahoma game's not back in Dallas.
All right.
That'd have been awesome.
Very nice, Bill. Thank you so much for your time.
Caden.
We appreciate it. Carson, Brian, Sam, if you're ever in Tulsa on Sunday night, stop by and we'll put a 3rd chair right here and we can all lean over or sit up straight or whatever.
That was unfortunate.
That's it for the Rant. Take care, everybody.
See ya.